It's Ron Reader digs the universe. I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe. And tonight, Corporal Punishment, Synaptic Structures, Abu Ghraib, and Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. Last week, I got into a little debate on a hometown Facebook page post reminiscing about SWATs back in the day at Kingwood Middle School. It's more of a joke than anything else. I commented that I too was beaten at KMS, and pretty quickly I got hit with a few responses insisting that a paddling is not a beating. And how could I resist such a challenge? I reminded my detractors that the paddle in question was actually a heavy board with holes cut in it to reduce air resistance during the beating process. I also reminded them that when you remove the parent-child relationship from the situation, a relationship schools legally claim during school hours, one person hitting another with a heavy board, a weapon, really is called assault. And people go to prison for non-trivial amounts of time when convicted of assault. My detractors were silenced, but I seriously doubt they were persuaded to join me in my condemnation of school-sponsored beatings. After all, it's what they grew up with, and how could there be anything wrong with what you grow up with? One thing that really stuck with me back in the day, studying educational psychology and childhood development when I was getting certified to teach, is how amazingly easy it is to fuck up kids' heads. So easy, in fact, that it happens inadvertently all the time. The human brain is always creating new synaptic structures, the electrochemical reactions that biologically correspond with thought and emotion, but the synaptic structures established during childhood are foundational, the strongest and most permanent, and that's why childhood trauma is often with you for the rest of your life, embedded in the synaptic structures. Same with emotion as it is with knowledge. You can take the boy out of the church, but you can't take the church out of the boy. Just ask a recovering Catholic. And what knowledge does beating a child instill? Might makes right. Violent coercion is how the world works. Bullying gets stuff done. The strong should prey on the weak. Beating children, especially in the educational setting, is so wrong. 19 states still allow corporal punishment. Most of these states are in the South, which is no surprise, but before that, in living memory, it was everywhere. And I am quite certain that the practice in its totality has had malevolent effects on American culture, and the effects are at their most malevolent in the American conservative subculture. There were, in 2004, two seemingly unrelated events that, if you were paying close attention, revealed a very disturbing aspect of the American psyche. First, the Abu Ghraib Iraqi prisoner of war torture scandal hit the headlines, and that was horrifying enough in its own right, but even more horrifying to me was that a majority of Americans approved of torturing POWs, as was shown in polls taken in the following weeks. I always thought torture is immoral and totally un-American. Apparently not. Second, that same year, Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ was released to theaters, and millions of Americans loved it. Because, it's about God's love or some shit, except that it's not about love at all. The film spends only a relatively tiny amount of time dealing with the resurrection, the most optimistic and hopeful part of the Gospels. Virtually the entire film is a celebration of spraying blood and flying chunks of flesh. If you like that movie in a spiritual way, for you, the notion of love is inextricably linked to torture and brutal murder. Two sides of the same coin. You gotta have some agony before the ecstasy. So, you see the connection between Abu Ghraib and the Passion of the Christ. American culture glorifies the infliction of pain and suffering, from criminals to POWs to children in school. We like to hurt people. And corporal punishment helps create the foundational synaptic structures that make it all okay. Here's a bonus question for you. What happens when you combine racism with all of this? I'm Ron Reader, and this has been Ron Reader Digs the Universe. Join me, Ron Reader, again next week for another episode of Ron Reader Digs the Universe.